Welcome to Be On It, episode 29, part 2. Jessica, what's going on in the Beehive today?
Hi, Debbie. I was thinking about, since we talked about pregnancy, it would be appropriate to talk about postpartum. What happens after pregnancy? The clevelandclinic.org defines it as postpartum or postnatal. It's a period after childbirth, most often the postpartum period. It's the first 6 to 8 weeks after delivery. Symptoms and changes that occur during postpartum period could even go beyond that 8 weeks. Every pregnancy is so different, and every postpartum experience is completely different. And so I thought it was worth talking about our stories and what we went through and like educating people on what to expect.
With that definition, realizing that after you have a baby, your hormone levels change, your estrogen and progesterone go down drastically, and then other hormones, prolactin and oxytocin, rise to support events that happen after birth, bonding, and then lactation. This topic made me think about my 3 pregnancies and what happened after the delivery. With my first pregnancy, ignorance isn't bliss, but ignorance is ignorance. I really didn't know what to expect going into the delivery process, but I did realize that I needed to see a doctor after my water had broken. After we realized that that was my water that had broken, I went into the hospital, and I remember they started fluids, and they probably did things to augment labor at that point. I don't remember all the specifics. They didn't really give me a term for it, but I believe I had choreo because
interesting.
It took me so long to get fully dilated. They were recommending that I get an epidural to get it earlier than later. And so I got an epidural, and I felt like that slowed my labor. But at any rate, I just wasn't able to get fully dilated. And then I started having a fever, and the baby started getting tachycardic. So we ended up going in for a C-section at that point. So,
and not something you even expected.
No, I didn't. But considering how big she was, I'm so glad that I did have a C-section, because I think I would have had issues otherwise. She was 9'5". So
what? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was big, but I didn't realize. I just thought I would have a 7-pounder. My mom had 7-pounders, but my husband's family, they have big babies, so I didn't calculate that factor.
We never think about that.
But she came out, and a C-section is abdominal surgery. I had a catheter still in, and I couldn't move very well. And then I started trying to breastfeed, and she took to breastfeeding okay, but as per normal, you just get the colostrum in the beginning. Your milk doesn't come in until a little bit later. She also needed phototherapy while I was in the hospital. So that was another thing that I didn't realize. But
so her jaundice levels were high.
Right. Her jaundice. And so we were able to just provide her phototherapy in the nursery. But she did have to be away from me for that interim. I felt really bad because I was trying to get my milk. I was obviously trying to feed her colostrum, but I think she came out hungry, because I remember going into the nursery where she was on the phototherapy for jaundice.
Yeah.
And I was like, "How is she doing?" And the nurse goes, "Oh, she just downed 60 milliliters of formula." And I felt really bad because I wasn't making that much at that point.
Right.
I was making colostrum, so there would be no way that I would make that much anyways.
Right.
Even if she was latched onto me.
Typically at that age, take that amount because their stomachs are so small, and they are still kind of adjusting to be on the outside.
Okay, well, maybe I'm thinking wrong. Maybe 60 does seem like a lot, doesn't it? Let's just say the nurse said that she took a lot of formula. And I was just like, oh my goodness. Like, I felt really guilty because I wasn't able to make that much milk at that time for her. She was a really good eater. After we got out of the hospital, everything kind of evened out. I was able to feed her, breastfeed her, and take care of her because I was able to get over the postoperative pain pretty quickly. The recovery was really quick for me. I was young, and it was my first operation.
That's great, because that's major stomach surgery, and having a support system so important.
Yeah.
Because you can't lift more than 15, 20 pounds, I think, for quite some time.
Well, they just say don't lift anything heavier than your baby.
Heavier than your baby. So
I think
that is
probably
kind
the
of
first
restrictive.
6 weeks.
That's impressive.
Yeah. So it was like I bounced back pretty quick that first time.
You're one of those amazing moms that I work with that hop out of bed after a C-section and my mouth is open because I'm like, whoa.
who knows? Who
Slow
knows
down a
what?
little bit. You've been in bed for some time because you just had a C-section. This is the first time you're getting out of bed, and
Yeah.
you got to get your legs back.
Take it slow though, because
Take it slow. Yeah.
yeah, take it slow and easy, because you don't want to hurt yourself, and that could set you back even further.
You
How
don't want to
about you?
get up so fast that you faint. It's like that's something that we, definitely look out at the hospital where I work. We don't want fainting.
Yeah, and you want to take the precautions that you need to take. I mean, easy does it, because you've cut into all layers to get to the baby, to the uterus, like muscles and subcu and fascia and
Yeah,
all
it's a
that.
big
So,
deal.
yeah, it is.
For me, since you just asked me, I was a high risk pregnancy. So I had to go in with my first one at 37 weeks. I had to go in the night before where I believe they gave me a pill to soften my cervix because they wanted to control every aspect of my delivery because I was so high risk of having embolisms. And ignorance is bliss because I didn't really know all the things that could happen. I knew I could get some clots, but I didn't know much of anything else. I didn't know about hemorrhaging possibilities or things like that. Those are things you kind of learn after, or if you experience it, you learn it really quick. I remember being scared of, I was like, oh, I hope they never have to use the vacuum to help my child be delivered. And of course, with me, they did. The next morning they started Pitocin around 9 something in the morning. And up until then, I slept through the night, no issues, no contractions or anything. Once they started that Pitocin, it really set me into some really major labor contractions. And so they gave me an epidural. That was no issue at all. I was able to really focus. I think back now, I didn't have a birth plan because I didn't really know what that meant. In all honesty, it would have went out the door because anything that I had planned, exactly opposite happened. And so I had a focal point. I remember it being a beautiful day. I remember my doctor saying, let's have a baby today. And I'm like, let's do it. So that just got me like ready and prepared that we're doing this and that, I'm ready for this. I think she delivered at 11:45. So very, very fast,
Oh,
labor.
yeah.
They used the vacuum because she ended up with a short cord. Every time I'd have a contraction, her oxygen levels would drop. That was a little scary. I think the NICU was standing by. All my family was in the room. Things were happening so fast. They gave me an epidural and I was like, well, you can stop the epidural. And they're like, we did an hour ago. So I was so numb and they were telling me to push and I couldn't feel anything. I just had to imagine what pushing was like. They had to use the vacuum because she was just having so much trouble. She came out, she was great. She was only 5 pounds, 12 ounces. But I delivered at
Almost.
37 weeks. She just wasn't a big baby. She was just tiny, all legs, and just like latched with no issues at all. She had no trouble latching onto the breast and nursing at all.
Mm-hmm.
What happened after for me was a little bit of postpartum depression because I wasn't producing enough milk. And so there was this guilt that I had to supplement. Every time I'd pump, I only produced like 2 ounces of milk with
Mm-hmm.
both breasts. So she wasn't getting enough. And like your daughter, she came out starving. And I
Yeah.
think she was really making up for like putting on some extra fat because she was delivered a little bit early, even though she's considered full term. It was on the earlier side of full term. She just was hungry and always wanted to eat.
Yeah.
They talk
Yeah,
about
mine
cluster
too.
feeding. This girl was born cluster feeding.
But when did you start feeling that? When
Right
you got
away,
home?
it was very surreal experience. It was like, oh my gosh, I just had a baby. And I thought this was like all hormones and this is about being a new mom. I'm like thinking, does everybody experience this? Because this child is mine. I'm taking this child home. I'm not just babysitting. So
Mm-hmm.
that was going through my mind as I'm holding her. I'm like having this out of body experience. And I
Mm-hmm.
just thought this was normal what every mom goes through, but I'm thinking this is wild. And I'm feeling guilt, I'm feeling exhaustion. I didn't sleep. My husband was really attentive. He was helping, but just all these feelings. I'm like, I don't know what's normal. I didn't know anything. And there wasn't a ton of education back then like there is now. Now you can Google things or there's support systems. I had great lactation support in the hospital, but there wasn't anything like after. And so I don't know if this is all normal things that should be going through because I was high risk and I was on blood thinners. For the first 6 weeks, I saw an OBGYN, and then I switched back over to my internal medicine doctor. And by then, there was some postpartum depression going on. I just wasn't sleeping. I was so beyond exhausted. I had mentioned, I said, I think I'm having a little bit of postpartum depression. And he was like, well, once we go down that rabbit hole, it'll be documented. And I was like, well, okay, well, I guess I don't want that. So it was just this kind of taboo, like instead of being supportive and saying, tell me more about it, it made me afraid to say anything.
Mm.
And so I feel like I didn't have support. Eventually, it just kind of faded away, but the exhaustion continued. The 6 month mark of, breastfeeding and supplementing with my daughter, my milk all of a sudden dried up. I went back to my internal medicine doctor and I said, something's not right. And that's when he ran a thyroid test
Yeah.
and discovered that I was hypothyroid. Once I got on medication for that, everything was so much better. The postpartum depression was better. That's probably why I was like extra tired and I was going through
Oh,
all this extra stuff besides normal postpartum stuff because after that so much better. My milk supply never like I just ended up since my milk dried up just supplementing with formula for her.
so your milk wasn't able to kind of bounce back
It
after
never
getting.
bounced back, and she was fine. She was always a really good eater, still is a good eater. She's an athlete, so nothing's changed from that, but yeah, that whole experience was a really sad, hard time because I felt so alone. I didn't have anybody to talk to. The people that I could talk to, their children were older, and they had some postpartum depression. They were a set of twins and they had children close together as well. But one had depression during pregnancy. She
Mm.
never had another pregnancy. She had one child and that was it. She's like, I'm not doing this again. So I had that in my mind, but I didn't have like a support group or anybody to bounce ideas off. And like, is this normal? Should I be talking to somebody? So I
Mhm.
just kind of got through it. And Matt was very helpful. My daughter just was never a good sleeper. Once I got on the thyroid medicine, that helped my moods and my like depression. And I was able to bond with my child and I didn't have these like intrusive thoughts. So I attributed it to all
Okay.
that something was off with my body. It was so, so hard. I just
Mhm.
remember it being a really dark time and I'm like having all these feelings. I thought it was too, taboo to talk about. So I just kind of kept it to myself and kind of got through it. It made sense learning that it was my thyroid. When my second pregnancy happened, much different experience.
Mm.
I don't know for you if your experience the second time around, and then you also had a third, completely different.
With your second pregnancy and delivery, you have a better idea of what to expect.
Right, you have a better idea. So I have a better idea of what to expect and what to look out for.
After your first baby, you found out that you were hypothyroid, got that corrected with medication. Were you on any medication for depression at all?
But we would have talked about it again if I was still experiencing it. Once I got on that, I was completely fine.
But considering that took 6 months to kind of come to that point in time where you got labs checked and got on the right medication, that is a long, long time.
Within that 6 months, I didn't always have like complete depression or like lows. It was really within that 6 to 8 week time frame. What I had after that was that exhaustion and sometimes I had a little bit of intrusive thoughts, but those would fade away as time went on. Other than that, it was the first initial 6 to 8 weeks, and then the exhaustion continued, and then the milk drying up. So that's what I was more experiencing. And just feeling kind of alone and body changes, like, things change in your body and everything
Mhm.
readjusting, clothes didn't fit. So I'd be kind of down about that. So in that aspect, yeah, it continued, but not as bad as that first 6 to 8 weeks. The exhaustion continued, but the depression was come and go, not as bad as between that 6 to 8 weeks. So yeah, different.
There's so many hormones involved in the postnatal phase, the
Oh, it's
estrogen, progesterone,
crazy.
prolactin, oxytocin, cortisol. Your thyroid hormone can also become
Right.
unstable too. So
Right.
things to consider, because when you're having all these issues, it would be a good idea to get checked out to see what's going on.
And
No need to suffer for weeks and weeks, right?
exactly. Don't be afraid to discuss with your doctor. I think there's more support around postpartum depression and feelings that you're having. I think they ask you those questions now.
Oh
Back
yeah.
then they didn't ask it. It was
Hmm.
kind of taboo. He wasn't an expert. He was internal medicine. And he was coming from a male perspective instead of a gynecologist or a pediatrician. And so I just thought, well, then I can't talk about this. Then this just must be normal. And, I don't want to go down that route. So just don't be afraid to talk about what you're experiencing. They'll give you advice and they'll reassure you that some of this is normal or maybe this isn't normal. And let's address that and let's figure this out together. You should be a part of your care. I think we have come so far in the last 20 years where we are more supportive. We have more information. We're more aware of what women go through, and it's so different for everybody. And the
Hmm.
fact that men can go through postpartum depression, and people don't realize that 1 out of 10 men develop what we call PPD, which is postpartum depression, where they get irritable, they withdraw, they increase their risk taking behavior, impulsive action. So, something to be aware of. I know at
Hmm.
our hospital, our social worker is really good about educating on resources and saying, hey, this can happen to men too. We are so focused on mom and baby that we forget about dad. So it's just taking care of the whole family, and being aware of that is so important
Yeah.
because we were so exhausted. I wasn't focused on how he was doing. I was focused on me and the baby and never getting sleep, but he was exhausted and he was working. We were just a mess with our first one. It was so tiring.
Yes, you need support after having a baby because it is a humongous life event. But what comes to mind is the checking in. You checking in with yourself. Hey, Debbie, what's going on with you? And even tracking it. I am a big proponent of writing things down. Like the date. Okay, how am I feeling today? Writing it down for me makes it feel like it's real, it's tangible.
Yeah,
So just checking in with yourself and then checking in with each other.
agree. And I would ask Matt, I remember saying, hey, do you think this is normal? Do you think I should
Mm-hmm.
bring this up? And he was like, I think this is normal. I go, am I acting out of character? And he goes, no.
Hmm.
He goes, obviously your hormones are changing. He was very supportive. It was more of like that 6 to 8 weeks, we expected that. But it was more after where I was just so completely exhausted. I just couldn't go anymore. She would keep us up all night and she just never could get enough. So I continued to breastfeed her. No problems breastfeeding her at all. Whereas with my second one, it was more of a challenge. So there's
Mm-hmm.
that guilt again. But my second one, the labor was completely different. Once again, I went in the night before, already at like a 2. I was having a lot of Braxton Hicks contractions throughout my whole pregnancy with my son, my second pregnancy. They gave me the pill the night before, and they once again started the Pitocin. They gave me an epidural when the contractions got really bad, but nothing was working because I was having back labor. It turned out he was post DOP, which we would say sunny side up. He was positioned differently. I was feeling all the pain and I was having more of the issue. My son was fine. They had to use the vacuum with him as well because I ended up delivering him around 2:10. So they started the Pitocin around 9. His was a little bit longer, but still fast. Both kids fast deliveries. And he was 7 pounds, something ounces. So he was a little bit bigger than my daughter because he was also 37 and a half weeks versus
Mm-hmm.
she was 37 weeks when I
Mm-hmm.
delivered. Or maybe she was 37 and a half weeks and he was 38 weeks. It's been a while. I might have gotten that off a little bit. It's been 20
So he was
something
a little
years.
older and a little
He
bigger.
was a little bit older and a little bit bigger. The pregnancy was completely different. Like no nausea, no, just the Braxton Hicks and weird dreams and weird
Mm-hmm.
cravings, just things like that. I didn't have the post because I had the thyroid medication. I felt pretty good. I didn't have like normal postpartum things. I was having trouble with getting him to latch properly. He just wasn't grasping it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to use the syringe. That was a challenge. I just felt like a failure and I had to supplement and I never produced enough. It was coming back all over again and I was feeling down. This is between the 6 and 8 week mark. Normal
Mm.
to feel that way. It didn't go beyond. I didn't have this same out of body experience as I did with my first one. So that was completely different. I think that was because I was on thyroid medication and that just exasperated my symptoms, I believe, because I didn't have out of the norm postpartum blues. It was all
Mm.
within the normal, just feeling like having a hard time nursing and figuring that out.
That's so
Once I
hard.
got going, I did
Mhm.
really well with him. Didn't produce enough, so I still had to supplement with him. He had more of the issues where he would have tummy pain, so then I had to switch the formula. There was this guilt because he would just kind of go rigid and scream bloody murder, and we had to like take him in.
Refluxing maybe.
Yeah, so,
Mhm.
had to do some little gas drops for him. I had to go on Lactaid, which is that specialty milk for lactose intolerance. That seemed to help a little bit while
Mhm.
nursing, and then special formulas so that he could take it without getting major pain. He was a good sleeper. He wasn't a fussy baby. It was just that time frame where we were making those adjustments that he had some issues. He had a nice hematoma from the vacuum.
Mm.
So had to measure that, make sure that was okay. So yeah, completely different. He did really well. He was an easy baby, slept well, completely opposite of my daughter who didn't sleep. So, different experience altogether. I didn't have the same depressive thoughts. I
Yeah.
slept better. He slept better. So, much better with the second pregnancy. How about you?
For my second delivery, I was advised against having a VBAC, vaginal birth after cesarean. So I went in with the plan of having another cesarean. So my second one I delivered at 39 weeks because I we didn't want to go into labor. She was a little smaller. She was 7 pounds.
Okay.
I didn't go into this delivery not knowing anything. Having had my first, I had a little bit of an idea of what it would be like. I was surprised she was a little smaller, but I was going through a lot of stress. I was going through school and all that. I don't think I was taking really good care of myself, to be honest. But then again, my side of the family is smaller too. I just felt like with the second delivery, there was really not very much time to take it easy. So I have my
Yeah.
first daughter and then my newborn. And so my second one didn't get too jaundiced. We just handled all of that stuff at home. She latched pretty good. My milk, came in. The post op recovery took a little longer, like a week. I was on pain medication for about a week with her.
Okay.
I was off work for, I want to say, I can't remember, but between 8 to 10 weeks. I should have taken longer. It just was a busy time. You have a toddler and then you're trying to like get into a groove because feedings are a big deal, right?
Right.
My second daughter spit up a lot. She never got on any reflux medication. It was kind of within the range of normal, but it was different than my first daughter who never spit up. And of course, you have to get reacclimated to the lack of sleep because you might have had some better sleep between your first and your second and then get back into waking up in the middle of the night for feedings. I kind of took that on, so that wasn't fun. I would say having more of a team approach
Yeah,
to night feedings would be very optimal. Taking
I agree.
turns.
Matt and I did because I was also supplementing. So he'd get the bottle ready. I'd nurse and try not to fall asleep
Yeah.
while nursing because
Mhm.
that's very safe.
Oh, absolutely.
So I'd go out to the living room. And so that's like disruptive, right? Like try not to wake your toddler up while you get up. We had a very small house, so everything's heard. So just trying to have everything prepped, knowing you were going to be, warming things up and, throughout the night and also getting up and don't want to wake up a toddler. Once my daughter got to sleep, you most certainly didn't want to wake her up.
Even if you're lactating,
Right.
you can most certainly delegate a feeding to your
For
partner.
sure.
You can pump that milk so you can get a chunk of sleep in because
Exactly.
that's actually going to help you in more ways than one.
Exactly. And just having a support team. Now that you say that, I probably took maybe 6 weeks off as well because I was working part-time for an agency. I was able to find a position up the road from where I lived. I was able to go in the morning for 2 hours to get her up so then I could run home and pump and feed the baby. And then I
Nice.
would go back in the evening. So it was like a split shift. It might have been 3 hours. I might have pumped before and then came back home. My milk supply was so much better because I was close by and I split the 6-hour time shift. I think it was 7 days a week. So it was perfect. It might
Mm.
have been started off at 5 days a week, but it was perfect because it was only 2 times a day that I had to go for a very short period. My father-in-law or my sister would come over for those short periods and watch the kids. You're right. I forget because I think mentally I was in such a better state. It's going to be weird to take on 2 kids now. It was a little bit of an adjustment. But once once I figured out a routine, my kids are closer together. So if your kids are further apart, you do kind of forget both kids were in diapers. So I had a routine down fairly quick.
Mm, okay. Yeah, mine wasn't. She was potty trained by then, so she was sleeping pretty good. So just kind of getting back into the sleep deficit pattern was really hard with my second. And you adjust. I did feel like a lot of the caretaking was on me, so that was hard, having to juggle that and then also working. And then I had a bit of a gap between my second and my third, 6 years. That changed everything. Your body's older, so whoa, hello, surprise. With my third, I had another C-section, and the post-op was a lot harder. I think I was on meds for a full 2 weeks after my third, and that was surprising to me. Again, going through the same incision, the same layers for the third time, and then you're older. I just wasn't bouncing back as I was during my first time. I think I was 35 at that time. Then again, reacclimating to lack of sleep. My son, he latched good. I felt like it took a little longer for my milk to come into with him.
Oh,
So that
interesting.
was something different. I was struggling with my body, just kind of catching up with everything,
Yeah.
getting up to speed with the postnatal phase, with surgery and then the milk coming in and just your uterus kind of getting back to its normal size and all.
Well, contracting and
Yeah,
contracting, because when you
that was
breastfeed, you
painful.
get the worst contractions. So
Yeah.
having a C-section, I imagine that was very painful.
It was. Oh goodness. It was quite a bit harder the third time. But we made it. But again, I think like for me the lack of support
Yeah, that's everything. Not
continued,
having support is hard.
And with the other two just not checking in enough with myself and with the team, so to speak. The
Yeah.
team being the
Yeah.
home team.
Right.
The people who are going to, be doing all the things, the caretaking, the making dinners, the working, cleaning up, all of that.
I'm trying to remember back then. I think the first time it was definitely harder. The second time it got a little easier. And he worked from home. He had an office in the back. He was able to come in and help. You just learn to like pre-make some things, right? Like snacks and things like that. Obviously my son was still just doing breast milk and formula. So that part was a little bit easier, but you could just get a routine down. And then working a divided part-time job where it's split during the day. The hardest part was coming back at night. My husband would be asleep. My son would be asleep. My daughter would be wide awake going, "Oh, mom." She was laying in bed. Like Matt had been reading her a story and my son was in the crib. She was wide awake. Then I had to get her to sleep because I would do a morning position where I got my client up in the morning for the day. And then I go back and get her into bed.
Mhm.
I'd probably get home like at 10 o'clock at night. My daughter, she just wasn't a good sleeper. So here she was wide awake. And then I have to get her to bed. And then knowing that I'm going to have to wake up during the night with my son. My husband, if he was working, I wouldn't necessarily bother him as much because he needed sleep too because he had to work, and so I could figure it out. We talked about it, we navigated it. He would help during the day on his lunch break. We'd prep some stuff, and we both ended up cooking together really quick. It was just always easy meals, easy breezy
Yeah.
meals to make.
Yeah.
Toddlers are eating different things anyway. She was easy to make things for. And so prepping that, I just remember it being easier the second time. I had a routine down. I just remember one day, I just gotten back from home after delivering my son. Matt ran to the grocery store really quick. Like we'd been home for like a day. I was talking to the pharmacist about a prescription that I needed filled. My son was napping and I was on the phone and we had this built-in shelf and I was kind of turned away from the shelf. All of a sudden I'm mid-sentence talking to this pharmacist. I go, "Oh my gosh, my daughter's climbing the shelf." I go, "Let me put the phone down real quick." She had never done that before. Not being quite 2 years old, she thought that was the time to do it when mom's on the phone. We had like a little fish bowl. It was like this built-in shelf, so it wasn't going to fall on her. But the fact that she was climbing it to this fish bowl, I was worried it was
Hello.
gonna, break and something would happen to her. That was the only time she'd ever done anything like that. It was just one of those toddler moments where I had a good laugh about it after, but during the moment, I'm like, "Whoa,
Hello.
be aware."
Hmm.
Toddlers are, they're everywhere.
Toddlers are toddlers. I
Yeah.
think that looking back at all three deliveries and postnatal periods, for me, The spiritual and mental well-being part of me was kind of neglected.
Yeah.
And I really would have spent more time handling that better, writing things down and not getting swept away by the daily tasks. You want to be able to kind of check in with yourself and kind of alleviate certain negative feelings that you're having. And you're not going to be able to do that if you're going from one task to the next, to the next, to the next, to sleep and then waking, because
Right.
that process just is going to keep going on and on and on. Looking back, I would have really written it down so I can track my progress, how things were going. Were they trending in a positive direction, or were they
Right.
trending more in a negative direction? I think education for both parents in terms
Mhm.
of this is what would be helpful and this is what wouldn't be helpful would be a very, very good idea. Of course, you don't know how it's going to all turn out, but preemptively, this is a plan that we think is going to affect, and maybe some contingencies, but like, this is what you're going to do and this is what I'm going to do to get this accomplished.
Love that idea. I think most people have birth plans, but what about post-birth plans? I think that's such a great idea. People want to know what they can do. People bring flowers and gifts. You know what's really important? Some frozen meals. A prep service that delivers meals you can warm up. Such a big deal. Somebody like coming in to help you clean your house up. Usually you're able to clean your house before you go deliver your nesting phase, but not always. Sometimes unexpected things happen and you deliver earlier than expected. So having that sort of help or arrangement, especially if you're affiliated with church, people are always willing to do meal trains and come help you out. You have a tribe. And I think that's so important to establish that, to have a tribe and have things set up in place and people checking in with you. I didn't have that and I wish I did. And I didn't even know how to ask for it. And I was talking to my husband about like, I didn't even know how to tell you how to support me during labor because I was just so used to doing everything by myself. And hindsight's 2020. I would be able to tell you this is what I need. Here's my birth plan. I would like nobody but my husband and I in the room.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I want that respected. The second time around, I didn't want anybody in the room, but my mother-in-law came in with my father-in-law and brought my daughter. I didn't want my daughter to be there because I'm in pain and hurting. She's confused as what's going on with my mommy. And they did leave and go to the waiting area afterwards. But I just wish I had that support where somebody said, you need to step out. And I wish I would have articulated that, and I didn't. I did ahead of time, but not during because I was in so much pain. I just needed that person to stand up, and we've talked about it and we've, worked past it, but like
Yeah.
also being told after my second one that I'm too high risk to have any more children. That
Mm-hmm.
was that was a little bit of a grieving period too. I wasn't like depressed about it, but I
Mm-hmm.
grieved a little bit. Like this was going to be my last child. In hindsight, I got a girl and I got a boy, and I'm happy with that. They were very close in age. They weren't even quite 2 years apart. That's fine, but I have to honor that you do grieve that a little bit. This is going to be your last child that you give birth to. So there's a little bit of that going on. Definitely, I think there's more support groups. Don't forget to read about the postpartum stuff and what to expect because there's
Mm-hmm.
so much that I'm educating and nurses are educating moms on what to expect, that you're not
Yeah.
going to get a lot of rest in the hospital. We're going to be doing checks on your blood pressures, and it's going to be more frequent if you have high blood pressure. You can
Mm-hmm.
you can have some postpartum pressures. You can have diabetes. So we're going to be checking blood sugars. Babies can have low blood sugar. So we're going to be checking babies. So these are things that you wouldn't necessarily know unless you'd been through it before. Just expect the unexpected and not to get a lot of like rest in the hospital. And it's okay to tell family our visiting hours are between this time and this time
Mm-hmm.
because it can be very overwhelming.
You're going to have to communicate your needs and your requests and make that quite a firm request. I also would say that you're not going to remember everything that you learn, but always default to your common sense. That good old common sense is it's golden.
It's so true.
I forgot to mention that I had my tubes tied the third time after my son. That was another reason why I was in a lot of pain. It's pretty painful afterwards.
So you had the C-section, then they brought you back in and they tied your tubes, or did?
They did that all like right after he was delivered because they already had me opened.
Oh, yeah, that's painful. That's extra. Oof.
Painful. Oh my word.
Yeah.
I don't think I was told that it was going to be that much pain.
It's interesting because some moms like experience more pain versus others if they have a tubal right afterwards. And gas. And no one tells you that the gas pain can be worse than the darn C-section for mamas.
That
Ooh,
too.
because it radiates up into the arm and they're like, I just feel bloated. And when we ask all these questions, did you pass gas? And most people think that they are going to have a bowel movement at the hospital. That's not necessarily common.
Mm-hmm.
Like all these little things that you won't know unless you've given birth before, things that we're looking out for. We're checking baby, we're checking mama, we're making sure she's not hemorrhaging and bleeding out. So we're doing fundal checks. So those are things that you're going to expect frequent visits into your room because we're
Mm-hmm.
checking all those things for the health of the well-being of you, mama, and the
Mm-hmm.
well-being of baby. And we're making sure dad is or a support person is there watching too. Watch your significant other. Have that support person kind of keep an eye on things for that
Mm-hmm.
first couple of days.
Knowing what I know now, because I did the Montessori education, like I would have gone all full Montessori with all my children. Little mattress on the floor, I would have had a total different experience. So that's something to just kind of look into, thinking about, like, all those things of bringing a child into the world, like how you want that set up. Because, once you get that set up, you're going to build on that. So just keeping that in mind,
Yeah.
it doesn't hurt if you have the time and the space to do that.
Yeah, routines are important. Routines for children are important, and babies are kind of off routine. They have to develop a routine. People think that, oh, I got to get my baby on a sleep schedule. Yes, that's ideal, but sometimes babies are on their own schedule for a while. They talk about sleep training and they talk about all these things, and it's like you can do all that and still have issues. It's just every baby's going to be completely different. And so,
Mm-hmm.
talking to your doctor, talking to support groups, and mom groups out there. There's some, terrific information out there, but it makes you feel better when you have that support and being prepared, not just for pregnancy, but for after too, and reading
Mm-hmm.
up on it, looking at so important, talking to other moms that have already given birth. If you haven't, just all the knowledge you can get and prepare for the unexpected, the better.
Yeah.
What happens if your baby has to go to the NICU because the bilirubin's too high, which in your case, that didn't happen. The baby didn't have to go to the NICU, but they had to go to the nursery. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a whole other thing. If something's during labor is going on with baby and baby has to go visit the NICU, or you deliver too early, baby has to go to the NICU.
Yeah.
People don't think about that or expect that. Just prepare yourself to expect the unexpected. You're not going to get a lot of rest in the hospital. We will be doing frequent checks, and
Yeah.
they're all necessary things for the well-being of mom and baby.
Be a good team. That's all I want to say.
Teamwork and maintaining routines and being prepared. If you like what we're all about, join us next time.
See you later.
Bye.
We are all about community. Join our community by following and subscribing to Be On It through YouTube, Instagram, and of course your podcasting platform, so we can continue to bring Be On It to you. Just so you know, we are speaking from our lived experiences and are not licensed therapists.